Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Stephen King Cast, one man's musings on the works of Stephen King. Each week, I will review one entry in the bibliography of Stephen King in the chronological order of publication, and today I will be discussing episode 6 of Hulu's adaptation of 11/22/63.
Okay, up next, what I want to just thank everyone that has written to reviews of the Stephen King cast on iTunes. So, I mean, iTunes, without the iTunes reviews and the ratings, the Stephen King cast wouldn't be as legitimate as it is. And I'm very grateful to say that the Stephen King cast is the highest rated Stephen King podcast out there. Which is awesome. It's awesome. So that is because of all of you. So I just want to read some listener reviews on iTunes. And actually, while I have you guys, if anyone is listening and you're listening overseas, can you do me a favor and just take some screenshots of the iTunes reviews from whatever country that you're in and then send them to stephenkingcast@yahoo.com, because there's no way for me to view the ratings on iTunes in other countries. I can only see the ratings, the states' ratings. I can't see anything from any of the other countries. So I would just be interested to see what other people are saying in the other countries. So if you could just do that for me, send it to stephenkingcast@yahoo.com. That would be greatly appreciated. So we have Painter Palooza, who writes, "Take your medicine. I thoroughly enjoy this podcast. I'm a longtime fan of King, and it's very interesting how many of the hosts' reading experiences mirror my own. I look forward to each episode and particularly enjoy the connections to the Dark Tower series that are explored for each story." So, Painter Palooza, thank you for writing in. Up next, we have Great Show by Rye Guy. And Rye Guy writes, "I've always been a fan of Stephen King movies. I've never really gotten into his books until I got older. It was the first horror movie to scare me as a kid. It wasn't the clown. It was when Stan killed himself, the music, and just the scene, lol. But I've listened to a lot of your shows and totally enjoy the shows. Also, listening to your shows has given me an idea for a novel. If I can ever put it all together and publish it, I'll send it to you for the first copy." So Rye Guy, thank you for writing in. And then we have Mrs. Hillian, who writes, "While I don't always agree with what he says, I love listening to his podcasts. Since I have no one to talk about these books with, it's nice to have Stephen King casts to listen to." So Mrs. Hillian, thank you for writing in and leaving this review. And then we have Jen M276, who writes, "My favorite podcast. This podcast is fantastic. Constant Reader does an awesome job of reviewing each book in King's collection, from character analysis and plot to Stephen Kingisms and Easter eggs. The Stand episodes are my favorites so far, but they're all wonderful. I love that he reviews the movie adaptations and gives us connections to the Dark Tower series. I also love the musical choices for each episode. Two of my favorites, Walking on Sunshine for the long walk, and He's Not Heavy, He's My Brother for the dark half. The Stephen King cast is a must-listen for all SK fans." So, Jen M276, thank you for writing in. So, guys, if you have a few minutes on your hands, and you're kind of twiddling your thumbs, then if you just head on over to iTunes and just write a review, it will go a long way, like I said, legitimizing the Stephen King cast. So if you haven't done so, that would be fantastic. Okay, guys, now we have some listener email. As you know, I love getting listener email, and I love interacting with all of you, and I think that's important to be able to get your Stephen King stories out there, how you got into Stephen King, what Stephen King means to you, what your thoughts are on the books and the movies and short stories, and whether you agreed or disagree. Excuse me. I don't know why I'm so tired. But if you... I just think it's important for you to be able to share your opinions so I, in turn, can share them with the rest of the world. So Andrea writes, "Hey, Constant Reader. It's been a while since I last wrote in. I just wanted to touch base and let you know I think you're doing such a great job. It sounds like you've really come into your own. I love the addition of the Easter eggs segment. I got a copy of Stanley Weirder's The Complete Stephen King Universe, which I like to refer to, but it's completely outdated at this point, so your segment allows me to pick up on things I may otherwise have missed. I'll admit I have to start pacing myself a bit because as eager as I am to listen, I don't want to run out of my favorite podcast. I see you've gone all the way up to the Bazaar of Bad Dreams and even did Joe Hill's 20th Century Ghosts, which I can't wait to listen to. I read that over the summer and really enjoyed it. My favorites were The Cape and Best New Horror. I think I might pick up Nosferatu next. Do you have any suggestions of other authors worth checking out? So, Andrea, what I would strongly recommend, and I've pointed other people in this direction. I know that I've talked about this on the podcast before, but Jonathan Maberry's Pine Deep trilogy is a fantastic read. It feels like Stephen King, but it's not Stephen King. And you know, in other podcasts, I have discussed the fact that Stephen King never really has written that end-all be-all Halloween story. And if you want to kind of get a sense of what Stephen King would do writing about Halloween, then I would definitely pick up the Pine Deep trilogy by Jonathan Maberry. It is awesome, guys. It is such a good read. I mean, it has everything that you would want out of a Halloween story, and it's just fun. It's just fun. It's just a fun love letter to that particular season, and it involves the as ridiculous as it is, it involves a black belt main character who is your classic kind of Stephen King, you know, comedian, wise ass kind of guy who runs the this tourist attraction Halloween town. So this is like all these people come flooding into this town in Pennsylvania every year because it's such a huge Halloween attraction. It's got like this giant corn maze, and it just really celebrates the season. And so he's like this black belt, and there's a great love story with him, and I'm not selling this very, very well. But there's a mystery in this town, and it happened like 30 years before, or I think less than that, but let's just say 30 years. It happened 30 years before. There's supernatural stuff at work. There's a ghost involved. There's a vampire. There's like werewolves. There's zombies. There's the mafia. It is insane. There's Tom Savini, and it's just great. I mean, there's a full moon during the course of the month of October. Like, I believe there's Friday the 13th, and then there's also Halloween. So it's just fun, guys. It's 3 books of just great imagery, capturing this particular season. It's everything that you want. I'm telling you right now, if you're listening to something called the Stephen King Cast, the Pine Deep trilogy, which consists of 3 books, Ghost Road Blues, Dead Man's Song, and Bad Moon Rising, you're not going to be disappointed. I'm telling you right now, you are not going to be disappointed. I imagine that if you read these books once, you're going to want to read them once every year, once it starts to get crisp in the air as you head towards Halloween. So make sure that you check out those books because they are fantastic. They're fantastic. So Andrea, I mean, you've mentioned Joe Hill. So if you've read Joe Hill and you want to read something else, then definitely check out Jonathan Maberry. Also, Justin Cronin's vampire books, The Passage and the 12, and I believe the latest one has just come out, which I can't wait to read. I don't know if it has come out or not, but I assume that we're approaching the end. So those are definitely some fun books that you should check out as well. And then Andrea continues, it has been really interesting listening to your reviews, especially when I don't agree, because it allows me to see a new perspective. It's especially fun to hear you come to a new conclusion in the moment as you're recording. I'm specifically thinking of your epiphany during the Eyes of the Dragon bonus episode. Eyes of the Dragon is my favorite King work, hands down for many reasons, the most important being that after I finished, I knew I was going to be a lifelong constant reader. You read a listener email recently that touched on this a little, from Spencer, I believe. He said he was working his way through the King catalog just after his daughter was born, and those joyous moments of being a new father would be forever tied to the rediscovery of a favorite author. Sometimes I think what we think of as our favorites, whether it's a song, movie, or a novel, may not necessarily be based on the content, but by fond memories of what was going on in our lives at the time of discovery. Eyes of the Dragon also has one of my favorite King quotes ever. And Andrea includes it here. People's minds, particularly the minds of children, are like wells, deep wells, full of sweet water. And sometimes, when a particular thought is too unpleasant to bear, the person who has that thought will lock it in a heavy box and throw it into that well. He listens for the splash, and then the box is gone. Except it is not, of course. Not really. Flag, being very old and very wise, as well as very wicked, knew that even the deepest well has a bottom, and just because a thing is out of sight doesn't mean it is gone. It is still there, resting at the bottom. And he knew that the caskets those evil, frightening ideas are buried in may rot, and the nastiness inside may leak out after a while and poison the water. And when the well of the mind is badly poisoned, we call the result insanity. That's a great quote. Anyway, I really wanted to write in because I recently listened to your episode on Lisey's story and wanted to give my thoughts. This is another one of my favorites. With Lisey being the wife of an author, it gives us as the reader a different perspective on the writer as protagonist we've become so accustomed to with King. The novel is horrifying, but I think that you nailed it when you said the story is less about horror and more about Lisey moving on with her life after the loss of a loved one and the strength and importance of a family. The fact that this is something that could actually happen in our lives is scarier than any ghost or monster could ever be. I think that we have all had a love like that, a love so strong and deep that just the mere thought of losing it is painful. Change is scary by itself. People fear the unknown. Losing someone so close after so long, what bigger change is there? He captures the inside language of relationships. I will absolutely agree that some of the terms used are a bit cheesy, baby love, bool, booyah moon. I think that everything that happened to Lisey happened for a reason. Her relationship with Scott is what allowed her to save her sister. The imagery is also hauntingly beautiful. On another one of your recent podcasts, you talked a little bit about the Blair Witch Project and It Follows. I thought Blair Witch was awesome. I actually live in Maryland, so Burkittsville is not that far, which made it especially terrifying. It was the birth of the found footage genre as we know it today. You may already know this, but a year or so before it was released in theaters, the filmmakers put up missing flyers around their college campus. Talk about selling a movie. I also really enjoyed It Follows. I will admit I didn't like it at first, but after thinking about it a little more, I realized why. With torture porn franchises like Hostel and Saw, we've gotten so used to seeing everything that when a movie comes along that ratchets up the tension and makes our imagination do some work, we automatically think it's a bad movie. Anyway, apologies for a long and rambling letter. Please keep up the good work. I enjoy listening. Andrea. P.S. I love when your furry co-hosts make an appearance. They crack me up every time. Andrea, thank you for writing in. And I think that you really nail it when you talk about that intersection between life and fiction as we read something. So, Andrea, thank you for writing in. And up next, we have Lauren, who writes, "Hello, I just discovered your podcast and have been listening for a couple of days. I'm a huge King fan and have been since childhood, and I'm so excited to listen to your thoughts and explanations of his books and movies. I wish I could remember which book I read first. I think it was Christine, but I'm not sure. My mom read King, and I remember being drawn to the paperback cover art. She had most of his books, and I also spent a summer reading everything on her shelf. I do remember that for some reason I was forbidden to read The Talisman, though I can't recall its subject matter being any more unsuitable for a young teen than the Bachman books, or Needful Things, or It. I got, and continue to get, chills at the end of The Dark Tower when Roland sees what lies on the top. I have a BA degree in English and read On Writing as a supplement to one of my classes. There are so many levels to Stephen King's writing, especially when viewed through the lens of every book relating to The Dark Tower. I also enjoyed turns of phrase that tend to pop up time and time again in his books, such as falling ass over teapot and the main isms of his characters. So I'm really looking forward to hearing more of the podcast. I feel like I could prattle on for a while, but I'll spare you that. Best, Lauren. Lauren, do not hesitate to prattle on. I think that's important for you to be able to write in. And up next we have Tommy, who writes, "Greetings, Stephen King Cast. TJ, Tommy here with another long-winded email. I'm concerned with the Dark Tower movie. I love the books, but the biggest problem of the books is plot holes and narrative. I like your idea of skipping the majority of the gunslinger, retaining its bare bones, and jumping right into the drawing of the three. I say this because the initial comics from Gunslinger Born were good, yet most of the time boring. It's picked up since the Wizard and Glass backstories, the Little Sisters adaptation, and the first round of Drawing of the Three comics. I find myself more into the comics now than when they first came out. So here are my top 10 Stephen King novels of all time, or at least for the next 5 years. So number 10 is Carrie, number 9 is Misery, number 8 is The Dead Zone, number 7, The Shining, number 6, Under the Dome, number 5, Cujo, number 4, Pet Sematary, number 3, Needful Things, number 2, 11/22/63, and number 1, The Stand, complete and uncut, with honorable mentions, Christine and It. Keep up the great work. I love the podcast, and so glad you are transitioning from the books to the 11/22 series and movie news. Tommy. So Tommy, Thank you for writing in. The Gunslinger Born comic books, I think that as when you look at each panel, I like what Jay Lee is able to do with the panels. I think that he crafts very gorgeous images. But I'm very underwhelmed at the series, and I stopped reading it because it just felt like a Cliff Notes version of a story that I've already read. I have picked up an issue or two of the Eddie story, The Prisoner, I believe it's called, and it's not something that we've seen before, and it's Eddie as a kid, and the background, you have the Crimson King, I think trying to get to Eddie, so you see the low men, and that spoke to me. That was a little bit more interesting, rather than just kind of a direct, just face value retelling of the story that we all know. Okay, so if you haven't done so already, feel free to write in at the stephenkingcast at yahoo.com. So write in at the Stephen King Cast by writing in to stephenkingcast at yahoo.com, and share all your thoughts on Stephen King and what you like, what you don't like. I've had some interesting emails come up very, very recently in regards to one of the episodes that I released a little while ago. Someone had written in about if you could create a quartet, what would that quartet look like? Who would be in it? If you could create a team of psychics, what psychics would you choose? So very interesting possibility out there. So I've had some people write in, who would they assemble? And I've really enjoyed getting people's responses. So make sure that you, if you have some thoughts and you want to share, write into stephenkingcast at yahoo.com. So what's up next? I'm going to just go through 11/22/63, episode 6, and we're nearing the end, guys. So we know that we're getting to the end because the screen right away tells us that we're approaching the end. It's 6 months later from the previous episode, and now we're in October of 1963. With the end date in sight, we catch up with Oswald, who is being tracked by the feds, specifically a character by the name of Agent Hosey, who makes his presence known to him. On the particular day that Oswald gets the job at the book depository. We then learn that Marina has left Oswald, and in order to win her over, he gives her a forceful command for her to come back to him. It's a really good character moment because it's interesting to me. In this interaction, it just appears as though there's something missing within him. Because when she asks him, "Do you love me?" his answer is not yes. His answer is, "We're married," as if the two were related. And he says it with such surprise that it shows us how disconnected he is from the rest of the world. So I just really liked that moment. So then we get the credits. After the credits, we check back in on Jake and Bill. Not much happens. They talk about the theoreticals regarding Oswald and the upcoming assassination. Jake comes home to Sadie, who is spending time with Deke. We learn that Sadie needs money for surgery for the scar inflicted from last episode, and the two of them, Jake and Sadie, discuss the future. Now, remember that in the previous episode, it ended with Sadie learning that Jake is a time traveler. Then back at school, Jake and Miss Mimi have a conversation in which she tells him that she has cancer. His reaction prompts her to say, "Mr. Amberson, you are not crying, I hope." And thankfully for Miss Mimi, James Franco is not crying. The character is supposed to be, but the actor is not. And the result is, and I shit you not, guys, the showrunner or director decides to assist Franco by giving him a CGI tear. I don't know if other people caught that, but I rewound it, and to me, it is very, very obvious. It's very, very blatant, and it's not helping out all of the arguments that I made against James Franco in the previous episode. So then Mimi gives Jake some advice about taking the opportunity to be with Sadie. And this is followed with Jake doing some gambling in the hopes of raising enough cash to help out Sadie with her surgery. Then, in a major deviation from the book, we learn that Bill has integrated himself so deeply into the life of the Oswalds that he's there for Lee's birthday. And yikes, as Jake tries to pull Bill out of there, Bill knocks over a lamp that causes Lee to discover the bug that Jake and Bill were using. This sets Lee off in a rage, clearly. And a rage perhaps directed at the president himself for personifying the country that bugged him. There's an insinuation here that in their attempts to stop Kennedy's assassination, Jake and Bill actually cause it. In fact, I'll get to that in a little bit, where there's a scene later on where Jake is so concerned about Bill's growing friendship with Lee that he is concerned that Bill is the fabled second shooter, which is a very, very interesting twist, and one that was not in the books because the Bill character wasn't really in the book. So this is what I like about watching this character grow that didn't exist as he did in the book. And I like this natural, wild card that he is in this adaptation. So speaking of Bill, the party is immediately followed by Jake discovering that Bill is in love with Marina, catching them making out. Now, their friendship and their partnership completely implodes in this scene, where Bill chooses Lee and Marina over Jake and the mission to stop the assassination. Now, I'm very, very involved at this point, and I want to know exactly what happens with Bill and if he's going to play a larger role. Sadie and Jake head to the hospital with Deke, and it's here in the hospital where Jake gets a glimpse of the Yellow Card Man, a character not seen since the first episode. His presence tips off Jake that time itself cannot be trusted, and that it will most likely attempt to kill Sadie, who's about to go under with general anesthesia. And he's right. It's a great reminder of the danger of time, capital T, as a character in the show, and if she had gone under, she would have died. Jake interrogates George to determine whether or not Oswald will act alone, and comes to the conclusion that the assassination was the result of just Oswald. And in order to make sure that Bill stays out of the picture completely, Jake gets him committed, which is a safe solution, because anything that Bill says about time travel will only make him sound crazier. Jake is then set upon the bookies and beaten brutally. And then, just as in the book, the injuries result with brain trauma. And I believe in the book that I mentioned how it was a tensionless conflict here, because we know that there will be a conflict at the end with Jake and Oswald. So pretending otherwise is kind of a waste of time. It's kind of spinning wheels, and with 2 episodes to go after this, I don't think that we have time for wheels spinning, especially when we missed out on a lot of characterization in the life of Jody, and being able to see Jake as the man of the town. I don't mean a partier, I mean like an influential figure in this particular town. So the fact that the life in Jody, we didn't spend a lot of time there. I feel like this is a plot point that easily could have been cut and given, and that time given over to Jody. But that's just me. So all in all, guys, I did not really find. I thought this was a bleh episode. I didn't think that much happened within it. I felt very disengaged from it, and I think that any momentum that the show started with is rapidly dying. I don't think that we're going to sprint to the finish line. I think that at this point we are we're stumbling pretty badly right now, and I think that it will be a slow crawl to the book depository. So let's see. We'll see what happens. We have 2 more episodes, and let's see. I'm recording this. It is now Saturday, and we have our next episode on Monday.
So that's all that I have this week, everyone. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you have any time on your hands, leaving a review on the podcast platform that you use to listen to the Stephen King Cast would be greatly appreciated. You can always write into stephenkingcast@yahoo.com. And you can follow me on Blue Sky, TikTok, Facebook, and on Instagram. So may you have long days and pleasant nights, and I'll see you here next time where MOON spells Stephen King Cast.